Ho, 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 and a bottle of rum. So today I want to talk about the difference between maker schedules and manager schedules, because there's an inherent problem in the two workflows. Maker schedules tend to work in large chunks. Like when I'm trying to be productive in any sort of creative endeavor, 1 hour, 2 hours isn't enough, and I'm sure you can attest to the same thing. That being creatively productive is a little bit like sleep. You need kind of a runway and an off-ramp. You don't just fall asleep instantly. Being actually productive in a meaningful sense generally takes like an entire morning, entire night, entire afternoon, and that's why I find people that are just inherently or intrinsically creative are either like really morning people, and they'll get up in the morning and they'll just work for hours and hours and hours because they're left alone, or they're night people and they're just stay up late because that's when they're left alone, and they just have quiet time to work. And that, creativity just doesn't like happen. It's not like that kind of thing. Ideas are sometimes like that, but execution is not as simple. It's just like, oh, there it is, which is something I think people that aren't as creative don't quite appreciate. They think, writing a song or painting a canvas or writing a script or anything of that sort is like, oh, it comes to you in moments of eureka, when in reality the idea does, but execution, actually carrying forward an artistic idea, requires large chunks of time, and any interruption to that time I keep wanting to set this cup down, any interruption to that time disrupts the entire workflow, and you can just disrupt your entire day by getting a phone call, realizing you have to run to the post office in the afternoon. And so, when you're trying to be productive, you're working in these extended workflow states. And that's the kind of maker schedule. The manager schedule, which exists in any sort of corporate hierarchy, and that includes somewhat creative corporate hierarchies as well. They're all structured the same way. And a manager schedule is scheduled very linearly. It's scheduled by hour. I almost picture a Google Calendar, and you have 8 p.m. to 9, or an 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. That's how managers are scheduled. They're scheduled with meetings, with like follow-ups. And it just tends to be the case that you don't have to think about what's coming next because, there will always be something around the corner. I got a meeting with this person. I got a meeting with that person. But that doesn't demand a long, extended workflow process. And where the two schedules come into loggerheads is when you have the manager, which just inherently has to exist in a corporate hierarchy, scheduling meetings with people that are having to do creative endeavors, whether that be like animation or writing movie scripts or producing TV shows. It just clashes because then the manager's schedule is the dominant schedule because they're the manager, and they're setting the tone. And when they schedule an hour meeting at 10 a.m. or an hour meeting at 2 p.m., it disrupts that entire morning, or it disrupts that entire afternoon, and lowers the entire productivity of that team a great deal. And that's something I don't think managers appreciate, sometimes because managers just don't come up the ranks of whatever they were originally managing. The same thing with engineers, for instance. Like engineering, computer science is a artistic endeavor, I would argue, and that the managers of computer science or computer engineers, once again, sometimes don't fully appreciate how much of a workflow is required to develop interesting code, make an interesting product. But if you do come up through the ranks, hopefully now that I've verbalized the kind of differences between manager and maker schedules, something you can carry forward if you're ever managing a team, is to realize that like the people below you are operating on a circadian rhythm that is fundamentally different than yours in the job, and that they're working in large chunks of time because it's required to do anything creative, whereas a manager's time is lineated much more out in like, I gotta meet with the lead of this, the head of that, I gotta go talk to the lawyers. But those don't require the workflow states. And in fact, you don't want to just schedule 4 hours to go meet with the lawyers. You want to make sure everything's chopping along very nicely. And the problem with managers when meetings is that because their day is scheduled in such a way like that, where it's lineated out, it allows them to take more speculative meetings where managers will often be like, hey, do you got a minute? Hey, do you want to talk for this? Hey, can you meet me in this room for 10 minutes? Which in the manager's mind is fine because like, I got 10 minutes between my prior meeting and the next one I got to go meet with the head of this. I'll let me go talk to my creative lead on that. Or let me go talk to my animator on this. And the problem with that is that because you're in a position of power, they're rarely going to say no to you. But on the other hand, you're disrupting that workflow state. And so when you say, do you have 10 minutes? Maybe they do on paper, but if you want them to be productive, you don't want to do anything to disrupt that circadian REM-like productivity workflow state that they're trying to get into. something to think about. Anyway, let me know what your guys' experiences are working in any sort of creative endeavor. Do you agree with this? Do you disagree? Let me know why. And click around for another video. Oh, and if you want more daily creative journalism media videos, please subscribe and like. And I don't even use the bell myself, so forget the bell.